You only have to catch somebody at the right moment in their life when $200,000 a month isn't enough, or they need $700,000 to do this other thing, or to get out of this trouble that they've gotten themselves into, or whatever, right? That happens at some point in everyone's life. There is a moment when they need cash. And so you have the opportunity to come in and be the rescuer.
This is The Fighting Entrepreneur, the podcast dedicated to entrepreneurs looking to change the world. Learn how to start, build, and scale a business in today's highly competitive business environment. Here's your host, The Fighting Entrepreneur, Anik Singal.
What's up, you crazy fighting entrepreneurs? Guess who it is? Your favorite person in the whole wide world, Anik Singal, back with yet another episode of The Fighting Entrepreneur. And back in the ring with me again for the second time. He dared come back for another round with me is my good friend and marketing business extraordinaire, legal genius, and a bunch of other things. I think he also fights crime at night, from what I hear. It's Mr. Roland Frasier. Hey, I am really excited to have you back. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
What we're going to talk about today is how to buy businesses with no money down.
No money out of pocket is actually what because sometimes down payment is necessary. You can get better businesses, but we just don't like to have to come out of pocket for it.
Got it. So limited, minimal, right? So there's you know how I know what your strategy is because your students are hitting me up as an investor. It's funny enough, one of my own ex-employees, we don't like that word here, but one of our Lurn family members has gone off and he's become quite the little suave business buyer, and he's been hitting me up to be an investor for him.
I love it.
I just knew when I heard it, I was like, you learned from Roland. And he said, yes. So listen, everybody, Roland is, he's got a legal background. Then he found his way into businesses. He's the guy that owns many, many companies, but has no job. Many people ask him, what do you really do? And that's an entrepreneur's dream. Gosh, I want to have people ask me, what do I do? And be able to just shrug my shoulders like he did. I don't know. He is a brilliant person at going in and acquiring companies or partnering with companies, helping to advise them, grow them, scale them, and then sell them. And he talks consistently about how, you could buy real estate, you could do stock, you could do all that. There's room for that, but you're never going to get the kind of multiples that you'll get from basically private equity, right? Growing businesses. But the biggest hurdle with that people have is they say, you need money. I always thought that too. If I want to go buy a company, you need money. Well, Roland and I were talking recently. I actually paid him big bucks and hired him to do a consulting, to officially consult me because I want to grow Lurn through M&A. And he goes and tells me, he's like, oh man, you're thinking small. You should be buying companies that are at least 20, 30, $40 million. And I'm like, what? I was like, and how do I pay for that? He said, you don't have to pay for it. There's other sources that'll pay for it. So we're going to explore all of that. Plus, we're going to explore smaller things too. So today's session will be a consolidated consultation. Lurn, as you guys know, we've crossed over 400,000 members. We're growing leaps and bounds. We're getting amazing experts. We have actually about to announce some really big partnerships with some big brands. And I want to grow. I want to grow aggressively now. I want more users. I want more media. I have this dream, Roland, that is that a few years from now, when someone says the word entrepreneur, they say Lurn. Right? Like that's nice. Obviously that's why would you go anywhere else? So you're going to be an entrepreneur, you go to Lurn. So as many entrepreneur related assets that we could purchase up, companies, courses, we're ready to start gobbling. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. And in the process of that, everybody, you get to listen and just replace my story with yours, and you can learn how to buy business as well. So before we start, Roland, let's just get into it.
All right.
Can you get it a little bit into the strategy? You mentioned there like, it's not no money. Just give a high level, right? I see a lot of your ads going on talking about, in this economy, especially right now with what's going on, there's opportunities and it's easy to, you're saying buy 5 or come up with a list of 5 potential candidates. A very high level. Tell our listeners how it actually works.
Yeah, well, the first thing is that it works always, but we're positioned really well right now because of the economy being in a recession to actually acquire things at significantly lower prices than you might have to pay 6 months, 12 months from now, as the economy recovers, those prices historically, time after time after time, over all of the 17 recessions that we've had in the last 100 years and all 47 we've had since the United States has been in existence, that always goes back up. So there's recession, then there's recovery. And during the recessionary times, the value of companies goes down, usually because their income goes down. The multiples at which you can buy companies, because they usually sell for a multiple of revenue or profits, go down correspondingly. So now is a great time. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're in a very unique time, in addition to the crisis and the shutdown and all that, because worldwide there are millions and millions of business owners who are aging out and looking to retire. And in the United States alone, 595,000 businesses a year simply close their doors. And then the customers go away. The employees lose their jobs. The person who started that business loses the legacy of what they created, and the economy suffers from it. Whereas if we can come in and take over those businesses or acquire other businesses, which are very often profitable businesses, then there's a huge opportunity to do that, and it's win-win-win all around. The big challenge for most people is coming up with the money to do that. They say, well, I should just start a business from scratch because that doesn't cost anything. That's not true. And so I will start from scratch instead of buying one, because it'll be a lot less expensive. And ultimately, if you run the numbers, the chances of failing in a business that you start run about 90% over a 10-year period, compared to buying a business where the failure rate is only about 2%. So you start with a whole lot better odds. If I told you, let's play a game, and it's going to be with your money both ways, and you're 90% likely to lose in game one, and you're 98% likely to succeed in game two, you're going to pick game two every single time, right? Yeah. So over the years, what I have found, though, is that while you can close deals that require cash at closing, it's not always required. And even in really good deals that are being pursued by several buyers, it's frequently you're able to find cash from other sources. And it might be as basic as investors, which is kind of a very traditional way to do it. But also very often the company has the assets to allow you to use the company's assets to pay for itself. And so I'm a big advocate of doing that. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot view.
Yeah. And I want everyone to understand, we're using big words, company, business, and all of that. But for example, the offer that I got from one of my past team members was for an online product-based business that sells, I forgot, some product, had an email list, was an information product. And in that product, the owner had just kind of fallen out of love with it. It was just, they had started something else that was doing better. They liked it more, but doesn't mean the other business wasn't doing well. It was a valid business, selling well, had a good funnel built. And this particular individual just felt that they had the ability to build it better, to do it better. And in that case, specifically for that type of product, like even if that plugged into Lurn, we could blow it up. I mean, that's what we have. We have an audience, we have a database, we have media buyers, we have everything. And so you can be looking at, it doesn't have to be a big company. It doesn't have to be a local business. It could be an e-commerce.
It doesn't even have to be a business. It could be traffic assets. So we, very often suggest that you go and buy media. If you've got an existing business in particular, just go and buy a Facebook group, or buy an Instagram account, or a YouTube channel, or a blog, or some other traffic asset that has already aggregated the attention of your ideal customer. And then that can provide you a tremendous amount of, think about what you pay on affiliate relationships. It's usually 30, 40, 50% or more. And you're not giving that away anymore. If you can acquire one of those traffic assets and get a steady flow of traffic to the offers that you've got in your existing business, and you didn't have to come out of pocket to do that, you're saving a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, and we'll pick an example, and then I want to go through all the process, right? So starting a process, let's just use Lurn as an example. I can talk at a very high level of the types of things I'm interested in. One is, I think this traffic asset sounds awesome. You said YouTube channel. In my head, I was like, if I could find a YouTube channel with 300, 400, 500,000 subscribers already, kind of going after the entrepreneur type of person, That's huge. Every video is worth money to you. I could use that to grow my channel. I could use that to grow other assets. That's cool. Facebook groups, I get it. I like it. It's just, I don't know. It just feels like a lot of work. so I have one. I love it to death, but it's a lot of work. Like you have to nurture it. We've talked about possibly buying a podcast, buying a blog, buying, so it's so overwhelming. Tell me, where do I start? How do I start this process? We'll talk about the traffic side first, and then I'll bring in another side, which is I want to buy products. I want to buy someone who's selling a great business opportunity course, and I want to just buy out their course, buy out the rights to that course, and maybe even pay them a license in perpetuity and get their list and everything. So we'll do these two separately. So first, let's talk about the traffic assets. How do I go about looking for that?
Yeah, the easiest way is opportunistically. So I like to have I have a worksheet that I use that's got all the different categories there's 7 different categories of businesses that I like to look at acquiring, and then there's about 7 different categories of traffic assets as well. And so the best thing that you can do is really brainstorm to start and just say, okay, I'm going to actually take a little bit of time and I'm going to look within the niche that I'm already in and see, can I buy some of the players that I know already exist? So I'll give you an example that we're in the process right now at Digital Marketer, which is one of the companies that I have an investment in. And we wanted to acquire a newsletter because we started our own email newsletter and found out, just like you did with your Facebook group, is, daggone, that's a lot of work. Yeah. So if we could find one that already had some traction and subscribers and writers and acquire that, then that's a good logical addition for us. So I think that if you've already identified, and you mentioned YouTube channel as one that kind of caught your eye, I think you just kind of think about, what are the things that I could potentially buy? Well, I could buy events, I could buy podcasts or shows, I could buy, Facebook groups, Instagram, Pinterest boards, anything, right? There's all these things that I could buy that are traffic related assets. And then think of like what one lights you up as thinking, well, actually, as with you, YouTube sounds really good. I could do that if I could find the subscribers. So then I would just go and I would search. You might already know some that you're like, oh, so-and-so has a YouTube channel that I'd be very interested in. So that'd be an easy first place to start. But you just make your prospect list. An investment banker does that. If somebody comes to, like, if you were to hire Goldman Sachs for Lurn to go out and find some acquisition candidates, they would say, okay, what are the types of customers that you need, and what are the type of businesses that would really help your business the most? And you guys would sit down and brainstorm that list, and then they would go out and have one of their research assistants that's making like no money for working 10 million hours a week, go out and research online to find that, because we get calls, and you probably do too in your business, all the time from these types of people, right? They call you up and it's like, hey, I'm with a such and such investment banking firm and we're interested in, might have a buyer for your company. They usually don't. They usually are just prospecting, and they're looking to find, companies that are available to buy to give to their customers, and companies that are looking to buy other companies to become customers for them. So you're just going through that activity yourself. So the very first thing I would do is I would go on YouTube and I would just start searching for the channels that have the customers and subscribers that are ideal for you. So that just really be keyword searching through YouTube to find the ones that are good. I'd probably put it out to my network too and say, I'm looking for a YouTube channel that's blah, 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 has these characteristics. Does anybody know of a good one? And then you'll get from your network, you'll get some, from your research, you'll get some. And then it's just, you start reaching out to have a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not like there's a directory or a site or somewhere. This seems like probably the part of the process that's a little bit most time consuming is you're making a straight up cold sheet of prospect people that you want to go after, and they've made no inclination they're looking to sell, and you're probably going to have a large percentage not reply or not want it. So yes. Let's say YouTube. I sit down tomorrow, I type in the word entrepreneurship, copywriting, email marketing, based on some product based on ones and whatever. And I make a huge list, and I just get a virtual assistant, and I say, here's the template. This is how, reach out to these people, send them this and see who replies. And we're just basically creating opening a channel. I'm just going to use an example. Go ahead.
Keep in mind that depending on where you are in your career and the quality of your network, like for you, I would identify the top one. I'd probably identify the top 10 or 15 on that list that appealed to me the most. And then I'd put it out to my network and I'd say, like, you know me, all of the other major folks in the industry. I think you just say, does anybody know the people that own any of these channels? Because then you're going to get, oh yeah, I know that's Mary. Mary owns that channel. I could totally hook you up. And then you've got a warm intro. So that's going to always be the strongest connection because you pretty much have 100% response rate, right? Sure. And you're really reaching out also to not to buy the company so much as to have a conversation of how you might work together, because you don't know what the relationship will be like. The relationship might be, maybe they're going to be an affiliate. Maybe you'll be an affiliate for them. You never know. So I think if you reach out that way, then you're having the conversation. You're more likely to get a reply than, hey, I'd like to buy your company. And by the way, I'd like to buy it and not have to pay anything for it. That's not going to be as good as, hey, I see we've got the same kinds of customers and I think there's an opportunity that maybe we could work together. I'd love to have a conversation about that. And then in the conversation, when you're talking about all the different ways to work together, and we've done this both on the outreach side and on the receiving side. It happens to us pretty frequently in our companies where, people will say, yeah, see if we could possibly work together. And, if you guys have ever thought of selling, then, that'd be something we'd be interested in talking with you about too. And you'd be surprised how many times that turns into something. Now, with YouTube channels and other traffic assets like that, it's a really uniquely good opportunity because most of them don't know how to monetize at all. Mm-hmm. So when you get into the conversation and you start talking about what kind of revenues and profits do they have, it's very frequently almost nothing, or maybe they're selling t-shirts or something like that. And so that opens up a tremendous door for you to say, I think I could really turn things into something significant here. And they might want to stay to actually be able to make money doing what they do, which is great because then they'll just continue creating the content and they'll make 2, 3, 4 times the money they used to make because now you can afford to pay them and the company and the channel is generating revenue. Or you can say, if you're just tired of it, because ask any entrepreneur what their least favorite business is, and it's the one that they own. It's not the one like you go into a mastermind, this, right? And everybody's sitting there and everybody's talking about what they're doing with their company, and you're like, oh man, that sounds so much better than my business, right? It's just because you don't know any of the problems that are going on with that business. So that's the initial process, and then you just have that conversation. Now, if you don't have that network, and I would tell you though, you'd be amazed if you just say, I'm looking for a YouTube channel that's got 200, 300,000 subscribers that's in the topics of copywriting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even if you don't really have like a great business network or you're not right, that has all the contacts that you've got, you'd be surprised that a lot of your friends will know people. I mean, we had one of our guys had his 9-year-old son that brought a deal to him, right? Just because the son was out at a gaming store and the store was closing and he came back and said, Dad, I know you do these kinds of things. Can you help? And he was like, okay, I'll go down and talk to the guy. And he did. And he ended up buying it for no money out of pocket. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing would be cold outreach after that. And then for that, it's just the same kind of conversation, only you're starting it cold. So your response rate's going to be a lot less. Typically you're going to look, it just depends on what you're doing. But if you were to send out 100 inquiries, you might get 50, 60 responses that lead to 10 actual conversations that lead to you making 4 or 5 offers and closing 2 or 3 deals. So it's definitely a numbers game, but it's a numbers game for Goldman Sachs too, right? They're all doing outreach. They've got their networks, but the way they keep their networks filled is by continually doing outreach. Just if you think about it, it's kind of like content marketing, only here your content is maybe we can do some business together. So
you're pretty confident. I mean, if we reach out to 100 people, well-researched, good, targeted, that to get 1 or 2 deals done through the end of that process is very likely. Like that's the conversion that you're seeing.
It is.
Okay, wow. And that's cold outreach 100 that, it's not like we're coming from a directory of people who are already looking to sell.
Correct. Yeah.
So let's look at a YouTube channel, for example, and this applies to any traffic medium, exactly like podcasts also. We look at YouTube channel, there's channels that are generic, that are, motivational 360 or whatever. I don't even know what if that is one, or then there's channels that are brand driven, like the Anik Singal channel. And so am I looking to buy the more generic ones, or am I looking to actually buy the person? Like I could actually buy, because then once I buy the person, they have to kind of stay on. Otherwise doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's a great question. And unfortunately, back in the 1800s, they made it illegal to own people. So you have to like pay them and stuff. But no, but yeah, if you're going to acquire a channel that has, or, and happens a lot with podcasts or radio shows and things like that, you need to think about how are you going to make the transition. So part of your negotiation would be either that person is going to stay on for an agreed upon period of time and you're going to basically give them a job, which a lot of people are really surprised that people that own assets like that or that own businesses would want to not own them anymore but still stay there. But that happens a whole lot, because anybody that's owned a business knows owning a business is a lot of work. And the reason that most people start anything like that, a YouTube channel, podcast, whatever, is from passion, because they're actually interested in the thing they're interested in. And then after a while, it becomes a job. If you think about the millions of podcasts that have been started versus the few that last past a year, it's an insane difference. Yep. And it's because, as you know, doing this, exactly what you're doing right now, every week, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of commitment, and other things happen that are far more interesting than that, or at least sound that way when you first hear about them. And so, so a lot of a lot of people, particularly who are media personalities, really don't make much money at all from the thing they're doing. So if they've built a big business behind it, like if you go to BioTrust and they've got a channel and they're doing $200-300 million a year, that's going to be really hard to get that channel because they've already built a monetization strategy. So what you're really looking for when you're going after traffic assets in particular is someone who does not know how to monetize. And then you get into the negotiations. It's very easy to buy those for not a lot of money. I know we've bought Facebook groups for $1,500 that have 250,000 members. We've bought podcasts that have hundreds of thousands of downloads for, for like a really active one, maybe 75 grand. And when we've paid a lot of money for things too, we've bought Facebook groups that we paid, over $100,000 for as well. So it just depends on the value of the thing and what they're doing with it now already. But there's almost always a whole host of unmonetized opportunities that they've got. So if you've got, like you do, the whole Lurn backend, you can plug that in. You know what a lead is worth to you. You know how many leads are going to come from it because you're going to get the data, and then that's going to tell you roughly what it's going to be worth. And very likely, what did you make last year? No, we sold several thousand T-shirts. We made about $4,000. Great. Then the way those are typically valued is 1 times profits. So, right? Yeah. And then you just start having that conversation.
So you know my business. We've talked a long time. What are some of the things you think I should be looking into? If you were consulting me right now for acquisition, what comes to your mind? What categories, areas do you think? And then I can ask a little bit more targeted questions based on that.
Yeah, the two things that you mentioned are the most obvious, I think, is that I'd be looking for, I go through the process, right? So the very first thing I look at is media. So media would be whatever media seems to be performing best for you right now. Who are your strongest referral partners? Now you've got affiliates and people that send you business. So one of the easiest places to look is the places that are already sending you business. What about just buying those? Because you know how they perform, they've aggregated the audience, etc. But that's the very first place I would look, and I would look at podcasts, YouTube channels, Facebook groups. Those would, and Instagram accounts. Those would probably be the biggest things that I would look at. I would also look at websites because and Neil Patel did a great job of really consolidating in the SEO market. He went out and bought a whole bunch of already ranking for SEO sites, right, for all of his keywords. So I'd take a look at what are your top performing keywords, and then I would see who's ranking in the top 5 spots for all of those, and then I'd start reaching out to all of those blogs, and I'd look at acquiring those as well. If you're doing YouTube placements and you see that there are particular channels that are performing or particular videos that are performing well for you, then I'd consider reaching out to those as well. So I'd use my data that I've already got to start with affiliates and placements and things that you're already doing and say, can I consolidate? Can I basically consolidate the supply chain? Because right now I'm buying effectively content from those people, or I'm buying traffic from those people. So if I could go upstream and acquire that traffic before it comes downstream to me, so I'm not renting it anymore, then now I'm an owner, not a renter, and that's better for me, and I'm probably going to save a whole lot of money. And then I would go more cold after that. And then the other thing would be, you mentioned products. So if there are other products that you think are gaps in your market, if you're surveying your current customers on a regular basis and saying, hey, what's your biggest challenge? What's holding you back? What would you like to see us do next? Let them tell you what they will actually pay for. And when you see that there's a big demand around a copywriting course, let's say, then I would probably go out to Udemy. I would look and see where are there courses that already exist, so I don't have to do that I think are good. And then I'd be looking to buy those. Ideally, usually you can do, like with Udemy people, you can in the $1,000 to $5,000 range, either get them to create a separate course for you, or you can buy the rights, the exclusive rights to their course for a branded version that you do, like Lurn copywriting, right, using your brand. And then they can continue to keep their IP on Udemy and make whatever little bit of money they're making from it. They just can't say that, they can't use your name. They can't say that you've licensed it for them or anything like that. And so we can acquire courses like that. We've done that several times. And then you might find that there are other products that are out there that are just available that the people just they don't know how to market, or they forgot how to market. One of my favorite ones is we had a site called Startup Jungle. We ended up selling it, but we had a site called Startup Jungle, and we didn't have any content for it. We wanted to teach, have a lot of courses about how to be a cosmetologist, how to be a truck driver, just kind of how to do various occupations. And so we looked out in the market and we found a company that already had over 100 of those complete courses. And interestingly enough, they were making several $1 million a year from that for several years. And then the owner got older and the Google slap happened, and he never could figure out how to make money again. So he had a history of success, literally millions of dollars in sales, hundreds of courses. And so we just went in and were able to do that on a no money deal. We bought them for next to nothing. I think it was $30,000, and I did it on a deferred, seller finance payment plan. And so now we've got all these assets, which we actually know how to monetize. So for you, that would be the thing I'd be saying, okay, what's my market data from my existing market tell me are gaps in the current offerings that I've got? Make that list of those things, because there's demand for that. Then go out and find all of the traffic assets all of the course assets that already exist and that you think meet your standards, and then start making offers.
That's awesome. All right. So let's jump for a minute. So here's my takeaway. I need to sit down, come up with a big list of potential acquisitions in different categories. So visualizing a Google spreadsheet, multiple tabs underneath. There's the media tab for traffic. There's the course tab. There's the SaaS tab. I mean, we've talked about this at Lurn a little bit too, is just, there's some tools that we could probably acquire that our students would love to use. It just gives us one more thing to sell them. There's also all these little things.
WordPress plugins, Google Chrome extensions, those are very overlooked opportunities.
Yeah,
because like a complete SaaS company is still pretty frothy in terms of pricing. So those are harder to buy if they have any traction at all. Okay. And even if they don't, people tend to value them ridiculously high. But they forget about the like web apps and plugins and those widgets and those kinds of things.
Huh, interesting. So tabs for each of these, and then just make a list, aim to have 100. And just know that even if you stink at it, if you have 100, you go through the formula that we're going through today, you should be able to close at least one, if not two deals, and then stay in touch with the other 98, because you never know when things change a year later.
Such a good thing for you to say, because I think that the one of the biggest mistakes I see people make as they get into this is that they reach out hit and run style, and then they go away and they're like, oh, well, they're not going to sell. Or they get through a negotiation and ultimately they're not able to work out a deal because it's too expensive or thing, and follow up. But that's where I would say most of the deals that we do come not from the initial outreach, but come from just staying in touch. Hey, how's it going, man? How's that plugin doing? Oh, you're still not making any money with it. Oh, I see it. Your wife. Oh, your wife's mad at you for. Okay, because I see you're spending money on the people that you're paying. Matt. Well, I mean, we're still interested in buying if you'd like to do a deal, right? That happens so often.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I could see that. Okay, so I got someone on the hook. They're interested. The next part of this whole thing that makes me really uncomfortable is how do you indoctrinate someone into a like this whole idea of no money out of pocket? I know that there might be some money, but I feel like if I go to a person that's got 1 million YouTube following, in my head, I feel like the person's immediately gonna be like, oh, I want $300,000. I have 1 million YouTube followers. How do you walk me through the conversation? How does it go? What's the flow like?
Yeah. So let's say that you're having that conversation with that person. Actually, I was wondering, do you have any assets or any products in your company that, or any companies in your holding company that you're just kind of done with? You're not doing really anything with right now?
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure.
you're just like,
I mean,
really
we had one. Funny enough, we shut it down a year plus ago, and it was probably sellable. I just got fed up of it, and so shut it.
Was it making money?
What's that?
Was it making money?
It was making a little bit. Yeah, it was a headache though. Nothing compared to what we were making. So yes, it was.
So see, to me, that's a perfect example. So I could even come to you and say, remember that company that you shut down? It was, Widget Co. And you said it was okay. You mentioned it at dinner, at the mastermind that we were at the other day. What happened to that? Let's play with me for a minute. What happened with that?
Oh, we shut it down. We just let it go and got rid of the domain and everything.
You let it go. Okay, well, let's say that you still had it. So I caught you before you threw it away. Then the conversation might simply go, if you were, if let's say this is my first deal, my conversation might be, I'd be interested in acquiring that from you, since it's not really doing anything right now. And if you said, I don't know why you would, but sure, I'd be interested in that. So, well, it's not really doing anything right now, so I'm not exactly sure how to value it. So, how about if you let me take it over and I'll pay you 30% of whatever comes out of it for the next 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
For you, it's like, cool. I was going to shut it down anyway, right? Yeah. So that's a very, you've got one of those. Mm-hmm. So to me, that kind of shows you that even because you're busy, you've got a lot of super profitable things that you're doing, and you can't do everything. Mm-hmm. So why not? I could partner into that. I could say, tell you what, I don't have any money to do it, but I'm really good at Facebook ads and this and that. I'll just do all of that work, and we'll split the profits from it. How about that? Mm-hmm. That would be a deal that I think you would consider doing. So that'd be the first level. Now, with your YouTube person that's got the 3 million views, 300 million views. What was it?
I would say 1 million subscribers. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's got 1 million subscribers. If they're not monetizing it right now, then it's a very easy conversation. But the way that I'd start would be, hey, I see that you've got this great channel that's got 1 million subscribers, and I'd love to chat with you about the possibility of doing some business together. I'm not sure what it is, but let's have a conversation and see. And then you get on the phone with them and you say, tell me a little bit more about the people. And okay, great. And so what are you selling them right now? How are you monetizing that? And usually the answer is, I'm not, or I sell t-shirts. Fantastic. Okay, how many t-shirts did you sell? How much money did you make off of it? I'm just trying to figure out, because I think there's some other things that we could do that might be able to monetize that. Well, I hadn't done it because it's like selling out and I don't feel like that and I want to do this. And say, what else are you doing? Well, now is your big opportunity, because usually there's something else that they're doing that they like a whole lot more because they've been doing this long enough to get those 1 million subscribers. And so you can simply say, okay, awesome. Have you ever thought about the possibility of selling the company? Now, when you start having that conversation, remember that I've just told you, let's say that they're making $20,000 a year selling t-shirts. They're making, $1,400, $1,500 a month selling these t-shirts, profit on that. Okay, great. That's fantastic. Well, the way these things usually work, obviously you've seen it, you've owned it for 5 years now. It's not terribly profitable, but it's definitely helpful to us as we do our content marketing and things like that. And these assets typically sell for 1 times profits. So is that something that you would be interested in? Now, they can either say, screw you, no, I would never, it's worth 10 billion, or, which means that's a no, right? For now. for now. Or they could say, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I could get for it. I guess, if I could get, 4 or 5 times that for it, that'd be great. If I could get 100,000 for it, that'd be fantastic. Awesome. Now we have a starting point. Now you can pay them the 100K, or you can say, okay, well, here's the deal. I'm not sure how it's going to perform. And obviously, if I pay you 5 times for it, it's going to take me 5 years to get back. And I don't know what's going to happen with the content in the world. And there's pandemics and all kinds of other things that are going on. So what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to finance that over that period of time. So I'll give you $20,000 a year for the next 5 years to do it. As a matter of fact, I'll break it out. I'll give you $1,675 a month for the next 5 years to do that. So you've got that steady stream of income. You've sold it for the 5 times. You can say that you exited your company. And how does that sound? Yeah. Well, now think about that, right? Yeah. That means they don't have to do any more work. They don't have to go through all the hassles of t-shirts. They get 5 times, 5 years worth of what they would have made before. And you, under that deal, let's say that they agree to 100% financing. We'll talk about other things in a minute. If they agree to 100% financing, well, you can simply say, fantastic. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a test just to be sure that all of the folks that are there are there. I mean, I know everything's right with your statistics, but I've seen deals where stuff happens. So I just want to run an offer out and be sure that I can get the kind of response I want. Are you cool if we test that? And usually that's a yes, right? That's part of the due diligence process. And if you frame it that way, so as part of our due diligence, we're going to check the copyright on the stuff and find out how you're creating, be sure there's no complaints. And, and then we also want to obviously do a couple messages out to the list. And then you can pay for the down payment of that first $1,600 from that offer. As a matter of fact, very often you can pay for the first year, right? Mm. So that's kind of how that would evolve. So you're not saying, that's why I say it's not no money down and it's not no money at all. It's, I'm going to buy your thing. Now let's talk about how I pay for it. What do you want for it? I want $100,000. Fantastic. So here's the way it works. If you want $100,000 for it, it's the law of price and terms. Law of price and terms says if it's your price, which I'm willing to give you, I'm not going to even negotiate with you. I'm going to give you $100,000. Then it's my terms. And so my terms need to be that I pay you over this time. And keep in mind, you've only made $1,500 a month off of it for the last year anyway. So you're even without having to do the work, but you've also got another 59 payments coming, right? Yeah. So, and then you just have that conversation and maybe they say, no, I need 30 grand down. Great. You need 30K down. Now I'll look at what are all the ways that I can get that 30K. So for us in one of our Facebook groups buys, it was 75K. And so we said, we cut a deal that was a revenue-based financing deal. So what you might say to your YouTube person is, tell you what, I'm going to do all kinds of things to monetize this. I don't know exactly when it's going to come, but I'm willing to give you your 100K. And let's do it this way. The first 100K that comes in, I'm giving to you. Fantastic. And then what we did on the Facebook group deal was we went out and got 2 sponsors. We got one for 50K and one for 20K. And then we got somebody else. We did something else with the other 5,000. But that means that 70,000 of that 75, we just sold sponsorships. The beauty of sponsorships is it was a real estate Facebook group. And we sold a 50K 1-year sponsorship to a mortgage company that wanted to be the exclusive mortgage sponsor for this big group of real estate agents, because they figure they'll get a few loans and they paid for that, right? Yep. And then we didn't do real estate coaching either. We own real estate brokerage. So we went out and said to a real estate coaching company that coaches real estate agents, hey, how about if you sponsor for 20K for a year? Now here's what's cool. They both said yes. We now had 70K to go back to our seller and say, here you go, you're out. We did that, by the way, like 3 days after we did it, because we had those sponsors in place before we went out and told them. And so you might do that with the YouTube channel too, is find who else would be interested in having access to those people that's not competitive to your business at Lurn. And then you go and you cut a sponsorship deal. And the beauty of that, like versus an investor, is sponsors pay every year. And they only get the right for that period of time for that one thing that they're doing. Right? They don't get to go and like sell the people everything. So you just find somebody that's not competitive with Lurn, and you say, hey, I need $20,000 for the down payment. Let's say that you bought it for 100K and you had to come up with 20 grand, and you got an 80% seller carry. So you got 20K you got to come up with. You just go find a sponsor for 20K. Done. No investor, right?
So let me throw.
Does that make sense though? I just want to be sure you're.
It made perfect sense. Yeah. I mean, it was awesome. It was very helpful.
So you wouldn't feel uncomfortable because you're not actually going to that person and saying, hey, how about if you sell me your business and I give you nothing for it?
Yeah.
Right?
It's asking questions and just finding a win-win. I mean, so listen first and then put the deal together. And by the way, if anyone's watching and you're like, gosh, they're going too fast, I need more specific instructions and help. Look, he's got an amazing program. I can't cover all of it here in 45 to 50 minutes. We'll tell you at the end, they've got an awesome challenge that you could go through. Very affordable. And I just want everyone to know. Plus, maybe we'll just get him back and do another round. Okay, I want to throw, that was more for our listeners. Now, obviously, I can take on a little bit more of an advanced type of deal. I'm not worried. I'm not scared. There was a deal I had approached a couple years ago. Wouldn't have been the right time. And I'm assuming it's still around because it never got bought. But they were open to selling to me. And their numbers were confirmed. It was about a $200,000 a month profit business. And it is personality driven though. So it was largely driven off of a podcast, but let's just say they had figured out how to monetize. I mean, they had an email list off of it. They had some courses. They sold sponsorships. So, you were speaking about that. And it's about $200,000 a month in profit. And when I approached this person at that time, they were really looking to kind of, they had other things in life they wanted to move on to, a little burned out on that business, and we're looking for the exit for just the mental thing. And I mean, immediately you could tell, like when we even started, what would you be looking for? It was like, oh, I want, minimum a couple $1 million up front. If I'm going to walk away from this, I'm already making 200 grand a month. I want, possibly a share of your company because I'm going to help you grow that. We were able to get away from that really quickly, but it was like, oh, and then perpetuity, I want to earn out. And so for me, it was like a couple million up front. Like, I can either spend that on my own company or spend it buying yours. It doesn't make any sense. So the conversation just didn't go forward. But let's take that scenario, and now I bring it to your expert hands. $200,000 a month profit is confirmed. How much of that is relevant is up for debate, because that was the other thing, was they wanted to retain about 50 of it. So there were certain aspects going on that they wanted to kind of keep. Those assets split off.
50% of the company or 50K?
No. About 50 grand a month worth of the 200 were coming from different assets that they kind of wanted to peel off from the deal, which were of not much interest to me anyway. So let's just say it's 150 grand a month that was relevant. And, they're happy. They're making good money, a little burned out, but nothing they can't, deal with. How do you approach that? Are there sources out there that I could go? How much should I be willing to put down on a deal like that? And where could I possibly get that money so it's not out of my pocket, it's out of a different pocket?
So the very first thing that I'll say is I only like dealing with motivated sellers. So if that person isn't motivated to sell, like if they don't have a reason, if they're just like, yeah, I mean, I'd sell it and take 8 million for it, that's not a deal I would ever do, because I'm looking for somebody that either has another opportunity that they want to take advantage of, that's completely burned out on the deal, that's got, there's 8 or 10 really good reasons that people sell businesses. They might be having trouble with partners. They might have health issues. Somebody might have died. They might be getting a divorce. It might not be making the money that they thought it was, or it might be making good money, but it's trending down. So they say, oh, maybe this is going to run out. Or maybe they're just bored with it, or maybe they've got shiny object syndrome. There's lots of reasons. But so I want somebody that actually is motivated to sell. So the very first conversation that you had with that person, I would have said, do you really want to sell? And then if they said, no, I could go either way, I'd be like, okay, I tell you what, whenever you decide that you want to sell, then I would be very interested in talking with you. But right now it doesn't sound like it's the right timing. And that sounds like that's kind of what happened. So then when you go back, if it's still around, you might reach out to that person from time to time, maybe once a year. And I would say, hey, I remember we were talking about this. I'm just touching base. How are things going? And then they'll tell you, oh man, it's amazing. I've got 16 people and we're doing this, and my 200 is now 225. And so I'm happy as can be. Fantastic. That's so cool, man. I'm very happy for you. Still interested potentially in buying if ever the opportunity comes along, or if you find anybody else that is interested in selling a business that's similar to yours, let me know. That's it. And then when the call leads to, well, I've got this new thing that I started and I'm really into it. I mean, I think it's going to be super huge. It's the SaaS, and it's my guys from college that I got together with, and my wife's brother who worked for Google is coming in, and it's going to be worth so much money. And, it's kind of, I like this other thing because it's good, but it's really taking me away from that. Then you potentially have a motivated seller. Yeah. So then the conversation would be, okay, because I'm not going to even have the conversation if they're not motivated. It's a waste of your time. Right.
I think I would say that person wasn't motivated. They were looking, and it didn't sound like they were very motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and there are people who aren't looking at all. And then there are people who are looking, but they're looking to make a killing. And that's not our market. Right. Sure. And as you can see, it didn't sell. Right. So it didn't. You don't want to be the person that overpays for something. So when you have the conversation, you've determined that they're somewhat motivated, at least, but preferably very motivated. Then, and I say that because so many people are. You only have to catch somebody at the right moment in their life when $200,000 a month isn't enough, or they need $700,000 to do this other thing, or to get out of this trouble that they've gotten themselves into, or whatever. Right? That happens. At some point in everyone's life, there is a moment when they need cash. Mm-hmm. And so you have the opportunity to come in and be the rescuer. So now they've said that they're motivated, or they seem semi-motivated. So then I would say, okay, well, what is the valuation? Because you need to figure out what they think the valuation is. And this is just straight Shark Tank stuff, right? Or Dragon's Den, depending on where you are. You just say, okay, what do you want for it? And let's say that person said, I need $2 million up front and $50K a month for the rest of my life and blah, blah, blah. Then I'd say, how did you come up with that? And then they're going to tell you, and that's either going to be some number that's pulled out of the air most times, or it's going to be based on some formula, which will then give you a point of negotiation, because every formula has component parts. Mm-hmm. So if they say, well, I came up with, I want, you said it was $200K a month, so that's 2.4 a year. Let's say they want $12,500,000 for it, because let's just say it's 200. It's 2.5 million in profit per year, and so they say, well, I want 5 times for it, so it's 12.5 million. Fantastic. Okay, how'd you come up with that? Because it's 5 times. Fantastic. So now you mentioned that there was some of the things that you don't want, and by the way, there's some things I don't want either. So if we peel off those things that you don't want, well, now that you mentioned it was $50,000 a month, that's $600,000 a year at a 5 multiple. That's $3 million off the top, right? So as I'm talking with the seller, I'm looking at, okay, what can I carve out of the deal that I don't want? Well, you want to keep that, which is cool, and I don't care. But also, I don't need this other $50K a month. I'm really after this $100K a month. So now you've peeled off $100K a month. The deal costs half of what it cost before. So that's a process that you go through. And there's several things like that you can do. You can also find financing from the assets. There's things that you can do before the deal closes, or before you've even got the letter of intent, so that you know that you can do carve-outs and things like that. But there are also things that you can do after, where you can get financing on the assets or the revenue of the company. So then you start looking at, maybe it's an e-commerce company and they've got inventory. Okay, well, I know I can finance inventory. If there's inventory, there's usually accounts receivable. I can finance accounts receivable. It's got raw materials. If it's manufacturing, I can finance those. I might be able to get extended credit terms from the existing suppliers of the business. So you start looking at all the ways that you can find money to get the seller what they want without you having to come out of pocket. And even in deals like that. And when you get to the point where you can't, which you don't, I mean, once in a while that happens, but usually you can find that money if you're creative and looking, right? I have 216 ways, right, that I do it now, 216. So I'm just going to basically go through that list and say, what are all the possibilities that I can find money? Well, what happens often is I actually can overfund the deal, because they've got accounts receivable and inventory, and then the seller's willing to carry back money. Now, if the seller's not willing to carry back, I'm almost always a no, because to me, that means the seller doesn't believe in the continuity of income, right? And with that particular seller, since it's personality based, I'm going to say, dude, your business is your brand. Your brand, you are the product, you are the brand. So I've got to discount that value off of that initial 5x valuation.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So listen,
let me finish that one.
Oh
thought
yeah,
real
sorry.
quick.
Go ahead.
So I would say I've got to knock that valuation down, but I know you think it's going to continue to perform, and that's okay. And if it does, I'm willing to pay you, but I'm going to do it on a basis of an earn-out where we agree that I'll pay you half of what you want now. And then if the business continues to do what we think it's going to do for the next 12 months, 24 months, then I'll pay you the other half, right? So that's called an earn-out. And that's very common in deals where one person wants more than the other person is willing to do. Because for you as a buyer, it's all about risk. Well, now we've carved out half the value for assets that they want and that you don't want. And we've said, okay, let's take half of this and make it an earn-out. And now I need a seller financing for, let's say, 80% of the balance. So now we're down to, we started at 12.5, we went to 6,250. Now we're at what did I say 650? We started at 12.5, we went to 6,250,000, so we'd be at 3,175,000. Is that right?
Yep.
Something like that. 3,125,000. 3,125,000. So now that 3,125,000, because I gave you part of that, I gave you 3,125,000 on the earnout. We carved out assets and income that came to 6.5. So now I've got 3,125,000 that I've got to come up with to do the deal now, but not if I can get seller financing. So if I can get seller financing for 80% of that, I got 2.4 roughly in financing. So now I only need 1,125,000. Now I might go sell sponsorships. I might bring in an investor. I might then look at the assets of the company and say, well, this is an e-commerce business. His isn't, so there wouldn't be that there. But let's say it's an inventory-based business. Then I might go and say, well, do they have overstock of inventory? Because a lot of businesses do. And we've found businesses that have millions of dollars of overstock. And then we just close the deal and immediately sell the overstock and pay the person within 30 days or 45 days the down payment. So we do what's called a deferred down payment, close the deal, take title, make the changes, get the financing that we need, then pay them off. Their risk is very small for those that are saying, well, why would they do that? Number one, because they can sell the company. Number two, because if we don't pay, they can take the company back, right? So the risk is very, very low to them.
Can you talk about the, so first of all, right there at the end, it was just like, what just happened? Too smart. I told you guys, he fights crime at night sometimes. Seller financing, this term's used all the time, and you knocked off 80% of the 3.1 million. What is that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The seller financing is just the seller carries a promissory note. So instead of getting all their money at closing, they get part of the money at closing, and then they agree to receive payments for some additional part of it. Okay. So and this is in real estate is probably the place that most people would have heard of something like this, where you go in to buy somebody's house and they've got it paid for, or they have a lot of equity, and you say, we'll take out the first, but we need you to carry back a second on the house, or we need you to finance part of the purchase. And if you go through sites like bizbuysell.com, where there are business listings and things, you'll see that seller financing is actually listed on several of the listings. It's a very, very common thing. And the whole reason that seller financing exists is to reduce the risk for the buyer.
Got it.
But it also gets the deal done for the seller and allows the seller to get their price. Remember, always talk about the law of price and terms.
Right. But in this case, it's not necessarily addressing the seller's, I want this much upfront.
Well, you got to ask, why do you want the money? I just want it because I want it. What are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to put, and this is an amazingly good question, because what you'll frequently hear is, well, I need 200,000 of it to do this new thing I want to do. Or I've got to pay off this thing that's 175,000, or I want to take my trip to Antarctica I've always wanted to take, and it's going to be 150 grand to do that. Well, once you know what the seller wants, that to me tells me how much cash I need to get to the seller if the seller is truly motivated. So if I can satisfy their needs for less than what they think they want, then there's no reason for them not to agree to finance the rest. Because then I'm going to say, well, what are you going to do with the rest of the money? Well, I'm going to put it in the bank. Awesome. What are you going to get on it? Oh, I mean, they're paying as much as 0.5% right now. Fantastic. I'll give you 5%. I'll give you 10 times the rate you can get in your bank.
Yeah.
That's a pretty, right? There's a pretty good reason for them to do that.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Wow. Amazing. Well, I have a lot to learn from you. I actually want to revisit on outside of this podcast, this deal. I actually do want to talk to you about it. And see if there isn't something I can do to go back to this one. It definitely is. It covers the media. It covers the product. It covers quite a few of the tick marks. Really, really powerful stuff. And I think we're just getting started. Really, I mean, this is awesome to give everyone ideas, get you kind of mulling and thinking. Pick a niche, pick a topic, pick an area, start making your Excel file, and then get into Roland's challenge. So before we finish up here, Roland, tell people how they can get, what is your challenge? And then the URL everyone can go to, just write this down, will be lurn.com, learn.com/Roland, ROLAND. So learn.com/Roland, ROLAND. That's the URL you can go to enroll into all of the amazing stuff he's got. But please tell us more about it, Roland.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so in doing this for all these years that I've been doing it, I have so many systems that I just decided I would share with people how we do this. And we're doing these deals all the time. We're buying SaaS companies and real estate companies and everything right now. So it's something I'm constantly doing. And the program is always evolving. And what I decided to do was that the best way to really get people into it was to prove to them that they could identify, because you said yourself as we were talking, it's like, that sounds really hard. It's not as hard as it sounds once you start querying your network and that kind of stuff. So what I did was I created a 5-day challenge. So over 5 days, we help you laser target 5 of these $0 M&A, mergers and acquisitions type deals. And then I share 41 different ways to find those deals. I share 8 different ways to close those deals for no money out of pocket. And you have the complete cradle to grave, this is how I do all this over that period of time. And it's in bite-sized chunks because we've spent 45 minutes or so here talking about it, and it gets to be kind of overwhelming. So I created 5 different workbooks and 5 different days of content. So you basically spend about an hour a day with me 5 days in a row. And at the end, you have all of the information that you need to have identified 5 of these deals. And so that's exactly what they get.
Awesome. Well, I really think everyone listening should partake right away. LURN.com/Roland. All right.
And I don't know if I mentioned that's only $55. So
yeah, well, that's my favorite part. So I already knew that because I see the ads, but it's $55. Where can you go wrong? Just so you guys know, I did not pay him $55. So, you get a deal here. I paid him thousands and thousands and happily done so.
And I'm open to your listeners and viewers paying me thousands of dollars instead of the $55 as well. I just want you to know I'm here to do either one.
I'm sure you are. So yeah, there you go. Feel free to give Roland thousands as well. It would be money well spent. Roland, it's been awesome, and thank you. You've really got ideas flowing. I'm going to sit down. I will make that. I know that's my next assignment before we talk again on the private anyways, because I was supposed to sit down and make a list of stuff and go through it with you. But
yeah, and I think now that you mentioned that deal too, is I would make a list of all of those deals like that you've talked to that didn't really work out. And that it makes sense for us to revisit those too, because we may find that time is not friendly to a seller. Time is friendly to a buyer. Yeah. So that's the good news, because if you've talked to somebody once about selling and they were like kind of sort of interested in it, they're way more interested a year or 2 or 3 down the road.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially because if they were getting a little tired of it, it's been
how tired are you now? That's why you call and you say it sounds really nice, but it's also a little bit of a dig inadvertently when you're like, so how's it going? Oh, you're still doing that. Awesome. How is that? Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, it's been so powerful. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Roland. Guys, go to LURN.com/Roland. Get into his program. Trust me, you'll love it. And of course, go to anikpodcast.com and binge listen to all of our episodes. Find his old episode. It was awesome. Listen to that one as well. And make sure you give us a great review. So go to anikpodcast.com, click over to the iTunes, leave us an awesome review, help support us up the ranks. And then what I do is every week I pick random people who've left us beautiful reviews and comments on iTunes and then give you cool prizes. And also learn.com, LURN.com. It's absolutely free. Go join. We have over 400,000 members now. What are you doing? you got to become a part of this movement we're creating for entrepreneurs. All right. So it's been awesome. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next episode. Until next time, this is Anik reminding you, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, push it the heck back. Leave a comment below on YouTube, by the way. Click subscribe, all that fun stuff. All right, guys. See you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Fighting Entrepreneur with your host, Anik Singal.